I'll get my notes on my phone. Is that all right? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. All right. So dependency isolation. Dependency isolation is what allows you to encapsulate all of the things that your application needs in a place so that it doesn't conflict with other applications' needs. Here's kind of our basic overview. If I fall down at any point during our presentation, it's because this is about where I was last night. I'm flying on meds right now, so I actually feel pretty good. But hey, Ingy. Hey, David. Come on in. So why do we consider dependency isolation at all? Right? What's wrong with just sudoing to root and yum install a bunch of Perl packages on your VM? There's nothing actually wrong with that if your VM only does one thing, right? If it's maybe a little Docker container or something like that, you've got all the modules that you need on there. You might be able to figure out a way to replicate that environment on other VMs. Good luck making sure your developers have exactly the same modules. It's actually not a great strategy, but it can work. So this is what it might look like. You've got your system Perl that comes with your VM, or maybe you've installed your own. For one project, you need these modules, so you just either cpan install them, or you yum install them, or apt-get them, whatever. You need these ones for another project and these ones for another project. Now they're all mixed in there, and that's not bad if there aren't any crossover. But if any one of these projects shared a dependency with any of the other projects, now you've made some complexity there. And if you need to upgrade one, now you have to make sure that all of your applications coordinate that upgrade. It gets complex. So this talk is about various strategies. I will say platform-independent strategies to manage this in Perl. There are ways that you can do it for a specific platform. Each platform has their ways of doing this, and every language has its ways of doing this. And we're going to talk about generally Perl-specific ways to do this. So when I was younger, this is how we did dependency isolation. If I had a project and I wanted to make sure that I didn't mess up my system Perl, I would download the module, I would unpack it, and I would do the Perl makefile PL. These days you would use build.pl or something else, and set the prefix argument. This tells the makefile to set all of its installation targets to this home directory here, under my home directory. And then I would do the make test, make install. In fact, let's just do this. Let's see if I can make this appear over here. Okay, make that darker. That is a little screen, little font. Can you see that? In the back, is that readable?
No.
No? Is that big? Is that big enough? Okay, you good, Curtis?
Yeah.
Okay, so here I have a module in a directory, iodirent, and it's some Perl module we downloaded. So we're just going to unpack it. Let me check my Perl real quick. Perl 5.16, okay. We're going to do this, prefix equals, we'll unpack it into the up1 directory, local. Looks good, make. Oh, some errors, no big deal. Make test. Looks clean, make install. Is that too low? Can everyone see that down there? Take that as a yes. Okay, it got installed. We can go back up to the directory. And there's a local directory there. Oh, and there's our module. So if we wanted to use that module, we set the perl-5 lib environment variable. We're going to do local lib, maybe perl-5. Is it site perl? I don't know. So this gets a little tricky already. You can tell. I'm not sure quite what to set the path to. Perl doc io, bless you, dear int. Okay, and that worked. So we can see that it's installed. Then that's how we access it. And this was kind of clunky. You can see but it works. I didn't mess up my system Perl. Nothing got changed there. All the libraries stay in one tidy directory. I didn't use opt Perl. I used test local, but same difference. And this is what we would call poor man's dependency isolation. Once you go down this path, you start writing little fancy shell scripts to do this for you. For every project, you might have a different prefix or something, and you write a little shell script that sets that prefix and then sets this perl-5 environment variable for you, so you don't have to put it at the front of your program. And that can work. It's a little bit clumsy, but it works. And it looks something like this. You have your system Perl that's left untouched. For every project, you've got each project has its own set of Perl modules, and they are not, they're not touching. So if you need to upgrade one, you can do that, and it won't affect any of the other projects' dependencies at all. Another way to do this, if you're going down this path, so we call this ad hoc because we're just making it up as we go. Another way to do this, I'm going to remove this and this. And another way to do this, if you have cpanm, there's a local lib argument that makes this a lot less painful. It doesn't. It gets rid of the temporary directories. Actually, it puts them up in another place. But we have our local directory there, and we can still do the same. It just did what we did, just a little bit quicker. So cpanm is a nice tool if you have access to it. Now, what's the problem with ad hoc environments? It's still tricky to synchronize this across different developers or with production. If you have a variety of production environments, everybody needs the same version of the modules. That's the only way you can guarantee that your test suite doesn't instantly become invalid when you've rolled it out to a different place.
Looks like specifically when you're upgrading a version, because if you just stayed the same version like for the whole time, that wouldn't present a problem at that point, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. If any time you need to make a change to any dependency. Yeah. Okay. Let's switch.
You don't know when that might be. Let's say you install a module that relies on a newer version of list more utils, for example. You might not even realize that when you install a module, it's just going to pull that stuff in and write over your old version, and now you've introduced the possibility of a regression somewhere else.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So the next thing we're going to talk about is perlbrew. Perlbrew is really amazing. Perlbrew solves these problems by automating a lot of the switching and the hierarchies and module building with some nice shell scripts and environment variables and directory swapping. So let's look at this in action. So perlbrew has gives you named environments. Here's some simple commands. So perlbrew install 5.16.2. This will install Perl 5.16.2, that specific version of Perl. Once you've done that, you can now create what's called a library or a lib in the perlbrew under the perlbrew command. That gives you sort of a little container within your 5.16.2. So you could have, so I've named this project 1. So if you wanted to test project 1 against 4 versions of Perl to make sure that your application works well across many versions that need to be deployed, you can do that. You would perlbrew install the 4 versions of Perl. You would create a lib for each of these versions here and just name them project 1. Once you've created the library, you use it. There are 2 commands, use and switch. They're almost identical. Switch is more like a permanent, not permanent, but it sets a variable that is read every time I'm going to put this in my pocket before I pull it off the table. Every time a new shell starts. Use is only good for your current shell session. So you would use that project. Now you can do a cpan-m install whatever modules you want into there, and they all go into this library here. And then if you switch to a different project, you'd say perlbrew use project 2 or something like that, or a different version of the same project. And now you can test your application across different versions of Perl. It's pretty nice. So let me see if we've got something. Switch tab. Oh, I got to pump this one up too. That good? Can you read that back there, Curtis?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Okay, so here's a little VM that is the stock CentOS 510. Perlbrew, I have perlbrew installed. Perlbrew list. This shows me the perls that I have, already installed. It takes a while to install Perl because Perl's a big language and it has a very thorough test suite. So you can say no test and it will run much faster. But so let's do perlbrew use Perl. I can just say, you can type the full thing in, or you can just be short about it. Perl 5.18.4. Now I say perlv, and now I'm using Perl 5.18.4. We can do a perlbrew lib create project 1. And now I can say, so now perlbrew list. So we need to use that. I'm going to do perlbrew use Perl. Oh, I can just say 5.18.4 at project 1. Oops. Perlbrew list. Okay, so now I'm using that new project we just created. We can install a module, cpan-m io durant. Let's do cpan-m any event. I don't know how long this is going to take. That wasn't very long. So now I can perl-doc any event. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh, hang on just a second. Give me just a second, sorry about that.
Perlbrew there in relation to homebrew on OS 10?
Yeah, it's of the same star brew. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just by in name only.
Oh.
Someone like the name. There's a lot of stealing. We'll look at another tool that's actually a 100% knockoff of RBENV, if you know Ruby. It's again, the same kind of dependency management. Okay, yeah, in name, I mean, it's borrowed completely from. Okay. Perlbrew. Where am I? Well, I've done something wrong, and Well, at this point, you'd be saying, I got to get me some of that. It gives you complete dependency isolation. The one thing that perlbrew is also very easy to install. I don't really like this. I don't like piping stuff to my shell that I don't know what's coming out of. But I usually use cpan to install perlbrew, and that works fine. app : perlbrew. But this is if you're on a little Docker or some VM you're not really worried about. This works just fine. Then there is one line that you need to paste into your bash profile, and then restart your shell, and that's it. What this gives you is something like this. So you have your shell, and perlbrew gets between your shell and the Perl that you would normally use. And it really does a lot of what we did before when we were doing an ad hoc environment, but it does all that for us. So it manages all of the Perl 5 lib environment variable switching, and that's really where really where the magic is. Some of the problems I found with perlbrew is that I have a hard time remembering if I've done like a perlbrew switch. I'll change my directories to another project, and then forget that I did that, and I'll install a module, and now I've just corrupted my other project. So I don't know a good way around that yet. Perlbrew doesn't really help with versioning in as much, except as you are rigorous in making sure you install exactly the right version you wanted to. So perlbrew is a better way to do ad hoc environments, in my opinion. That's kind of how I've used it, and it's worked well for that. It's very easy and clean to do that. It's also hard to, it's not repeatable. You can't just give somebody a file and say, here's what you need, and you have now all the dependencies you want for your project. And it doesn't really give you any deployment help. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to talk about now plenv. And to be fair, perlbrew is not meant as a package dependency system. It's really meant as to help you with your development into just getting the right environment that you want. So plenv, plenv, I've always called it plenv. There's probably another way. Inge, did you had a history of plenv?
It's not called reben. So it's a port of Ruby's RBENV, so I call it PLENV because I also use the other one just as much. So and there's no way to pronounce RBENV like that I know. Maybe in Klingon.
So plenv doesn't really compete in the same space as perlbrew does. It is only a Perl version switcher. That's all it does. So the nice thing is you can switch it globally for your entire, for every time you log into your, bring up a terminal on your computer, or per directory, which is really amazing. It is not available on cpan because it's a set of bash scripts. So you get it on GitHub, and it is not compatible with perlbrew, even though they don't really compete in the same space. In some way they do, because perlbrew does manage your Perl versions, and it does sort of the same fancy shell environment switching. plenv setup, you can use Brew if you're using OS 10, or some other package manager on Linux or FreeBSD, or GitHub directly. I usually just pull it right down from GitHub, do a clone, because that's also the nice way to upgrade it. Once you've installed it, you can then change into that directory and do a git pull, and now you're up to date. It's really nice. Once you've installed plenv,
So just to be
yes.
Just to be clear, I see that you switched your pronunciation. You call it PLN,
Oh, plenv.
which is it's kind of a compromise.
Oh, I don't. I am completely fine with inconsistencies. So you'll hear me switch regularly depending on context and whatever, how I feel,
Lock you into a five-syllable.
how my fever's doing or whatever. Yeah. So yes. So after installing that thing, the only thing that this is my setup, and I highly recommend this. In fact, you have to do this if we're going to do what we're going to do in my next slides. I install cpan-m. Now this is a special shimmed cpan-m. cpan-m it's like cpan plus. Do you know cpan plus or just cpan? It's a package installer. cpan-m is a fast package installer, I guess, and it does all the right things. It's very nice. cpan-m, you need that, and then you install Carton, which is another module. These two modules are written by Toshihiko Miyagawa, and we're going to get to him later. He's a pretty amazing guy. Once you have these two things, now you have your system Perl that's still there, and you have whatever you have this nice base to work from. So this is how plenv. We'll go with plenv. That's a new one for me. So I do want to mention that plenv is not really meant for production environments. I've used it successfully in production environments, but it's not a recommended use case because you're messing with your RC files to get things right, and I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I wouldn't recommend it, but I do it, so I don't know what that's good for. So plenv works like this. It interrupts your shell, kind of like perlbrew does, and on top of that, it has its own. You install the Perl version that you want. This is what it gives you. You get per project dependency management. It's very easy. Oh, we've moved on to Carton. Sorry. Carton works with.
One thing about PLM.
Yes, please do.
This is a really cool project because I always get on these guys for stealing stuff from Ruby and re-implementing it in Perl and calling it some other name. Especially Miyagawa does this all the time.
Yeah.
And this actually PLM was written by Toki Hiram, a friend of Miyagawa's.
Mm-hmm.
The coolest thing about this is it's ported directly from Ruby, but it's auto-ported by a Perl script. In other words, every change that comes out to RBM, he just reruns the script and publishes it as PLM. So it's never out of date with the original. And when I found a bug once in PLM, I actually fixed it in RBM, and then it just made it automatically. I didn't even have to make a pull request to PLM because it just got.
I didn't know that. That's pretty amazing.
It's really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Because it's just Bash, right? So all
Right.
it has to do is change a few things to make it work with
Yeah.
Perl instead of Ruby.
Yeah, I like that. That's neat. Okay, so Carton now works with plenv to, this is where the actual dependency management happens. You get per project dependency management. It's really easy to deploy and stay up to date. You can use it with existing projects. It works with your version control. This means you can version control your dependencies. It's amazing. I don't think everyone appreciates that. It is difficult to use, if not impossible, with embedded Perls like mod Perl. And we'll get to the reason why in just a moment. So for Carton, well, you know what? Let me show you plenv really quick first. I'm going to switch back to this.
Are you a Ruby programmer right now? Ruby. Both PLM and Carton were taken right from Ruby.
Yeah. So here, if you'll notice in my directory here, I have a Perl version, and that corresponds to this here. If I said echo 5.18, oh, first, let me check and see what I've got. available. Okay, I've got a lot of Perls here, so let's do 2. Perl version. Now I run my little, now I'm at 5.18.2.
Ooh.
I can swap that to 20.1, which is now ancient. And now I'm running Perl version 5.20.
So did you say Carton is doing this?
This is plenv.
That's plenv.
Yeah, I haven't touched Carton yet.
Okay.
So we're going to touch Carton right now. So here are the files in this directory. There's just the one. I'm going to just get that one out of the way. So we start with an empty directory with just Perl version in it. We're going to, but that's plenv. That's all plenv does. It just switches your Perl.
Do you know how it works?
I've looked at it. It's got, yeah, there's a directory full of shell scripts that copy all of
Actually
the.
only one shell script. They're all hard.
Oh yeah, they're all
that
links
one
to it.
File.
Yeah.
So basically, anything that would install under Perl, like there's, when you install Perl, you get like probably 100 things under bin, and any module that installs stuff under bin, it actually PLN will create a shim that's a bash script that's about
Here are the
this long
shims.
that will actually look at the environment, look at that file that he was echoing to, and pull the real one out of that one and run it and exec that one. So
This is the shim right
yeah,
here.
That's the shim, right?
Yeah. So it looks for your, at its heart it looks for the Perl version thing, and then it knows which shim
One bug
set of
Windows,
shims.
try running which Perl. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. So if you really want to, because which Perl is the shim to the Perl, so PLN provides its own which command, so now run PLN which Perl. So that gives you what you would normally get from a which Perl.
Oh, right.
Right, because the actual binary is the shim.
Yes.
And so that's the one.
Yeah, that's a path problem there.
So is that shim going to get run anytime you run any command in bash then?
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything that was installed by Perl.
Yeah.
Or CPAN.
This is why plenv is tough in production,
Yeah.
because you have to get all the environments right,
Yeah.
and usually you don't have a shell in a production environment. You just have you don't have a login shell, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be executing any of these, and you may not even have a shell. So it's great for developer work to switch versions and things like that, but not so much. You wouldn't be switching versions in your environment, your production environment anyway, so not as useful there. But Carton is we're talking about Carton now. So let's see. This is Carton. There is one file that you need for Carton to work, and this is a typical CPAN file here. So this is the name of the file. I'm going to show you what this looks like. So here we are. We're going to cat CPAN file. Requires any event. And then we say, so there's our file. We say Carton install. And now we see what it did. Okay, it made a new file called CPAN file snapshot, and it made a new hierarchy called local. The CPAN file is just what we had before. Snapshot now contains is that YAML? A big file of all of the modules that were installed. This is also, these two files you would add to your repository, and this is how if in a project, this is how you would help all the other developers. They would check these two files out, and they would just do a Carton install, and they would have all the same things that you had. If you're the project leader, you created these things.
Can you show the command you used to, or what did you put in the cat out CPAN file again? So
You could also do a version in there. I didn't do that in this one. You would, I think that has to have something like that. So you'd set the specific version in there when you did your install. Otherwise, if you don't do this a specific version, it will just pull whatever's currently on CPAN, on the archive repository, and install that.
So say I go to a conference and I hear someone say, "Oh, you should use any event." Like, how do I actually know what I need to put there into the CPAN file? I mean, like, you've got capital A, capital E.
Oh yeah.
And like.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good question. That's more of a CPAN question. You can. Yeah, you would go to cpan.org and look it up by name, and it would give you the right, case and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's see. Can anyone spot the non-Perl developer? So let's, and we've got installed here Carton. So we did a Carton install. We're doing a Carton exec now. This is how you run things in a Carton environment. Carton exec, Perl doc, any event. And there you go. That becomes a little bit cumbersome. Some people will do this. They'll say Carton exec bash. And now, now this entire shell is running under that Carton environment. I don't like that very much because I forget where I am. So I've made a little shortcut in my bash RC file called CE that just does a Carton exec on $@. So that is pretty much all of how Carton works. You can set, as I mentioned, specific versions. You put the files in your CPAN file. You do a Carton install. And then you can exec whatever you need. So Carton does the same thing. plenv plus Carton sort of does the same thing as perlbrew, but your project dependencies are now completely unrelated to the underlying Perl. They are version controlled. They are shareable. All of your coworkers can, you can sync up, and it's really nice. And you can also, there's a deployable, you can bundle these for deploying. There's a Carton bundle command that will package up all of these files and their dependencies, and when you can either rsync them to the target or wherever you want to put them, and over there you would do a Carton install with a -- cached, I believe is the command. And it will then use that local copy, so you don't have to, if you have a production machine, you don't want to be going out to the internet, maybe. You can just use, it's all there. So you get exactly the modules that you want, that you have in development, so you have precisely what you wanted. Let's see. So this is kind of my take. perlbrew is great for testing and developing locally. It's if you're just a single isolated developer, that's really probably the best use case for it. It's not great for syncing up with other developers on a project. plenv plus Carton is great for multiple code bases. Especially if you're switching Perls a lot, it's really amazing. And the Carton gives you some repeatable version controlled environments. There is another project coming soon that Miyagawa is working on. It's called Carmel. That looks really incredible. Have you read anything about Carmel? So from what I've read, it looks like it will also do sort of the build a little mini CPAN for you, which is not unusual. There's a lot of projects that do that. Second, let me pull this up for my notes here. It keeps the dependency builds in a central repository and then switches the library paths at runtime like Carton. So he's considering calling it Carton 2. The syntax is compatible. It uses CPAN and CPAN file in the same way. So it's something to keep your eye on. Let's see. I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Corey?
So how would you have to use this any differently if you were consuming a library produced like internally in your company that's not being published publicly?
That's a good question. CPAN file has a couple of outstanding bugs. In theory, no. In practice, yes. For local dependencies, you can add them to the CPAN file, but you would use CPAN-M. So let's move this back into here. We'd use local lib. This doesn't quite. It's when you've got local modules like this. We had this exact use case at a previous company I worked at. Yeah, there's an outstanding bug in Carton that doesn't quite handle this well, but in theory it should work.
Yeah.
It just hasn't been fixed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Anything else? Ingy?
I was just going to say a couple things. So I do a lot of work in Node.js and also in Ruby, and both of those have, well, with Ruby, I mean, you gem lock stuff to, and that's where Carton was taken from, I believe. And with Node, when you actually install something that has a bunch of dependencies, it installs it also. In one sense, it's over wasteful because Perl was built to share all these codes, but as you build out and you have more and more dependencies of different projects, it just doesn't. It's better to, and now storage is cheap, so having every module have its own dependency module is not such a bad idea. But there's one other thing I wanted to mention. I guess it's just vaporware, but I've had the idea for 2 years to write a project I call LOLA, which stands for Local Language, because I do all of these languages just the way that Scott was talking about in their local environments, and I want to have multiple versions of each of the languages. So, and I don't want to have to learn a new interface.
Oh yeah.
So LOLA would just be the same thing for like a dozen languages, like
For polyglots, like yourself.
right. So hopefully, and that would just be, I could just do it having Bash wrapper around all the things that already exist, and that's probably what I should do for starters.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool.
Or Docker.
Are you good with Docker?
I'm not great with Docker. I've used it, and I use it.
Your brains on it a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, this was a little Docker container I built for today.
Like, can you run a Perl one-liner and just have it run in a Docker and spin it up, run the thing, and bring it down?
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay. Let's see here. So let me. Oh, let's see. Oops. I make little shell scripts for everything. Did I misspell something?
It looks like it has to be lowercase.
Oh.
That's what it's saying.
Oh, yep. I don't know how long it's going to take to install Perl. What's that?
Well, from Yum, it's already pre.
Compile it.
Yeah, it's not downloaded. It's on test.
Well, you got to download the whole thing, though.
Yeah.
So while that's going, so if you, there we go.
Okay, so yeah, explain what you did. little bit more.
So I've just built a Docker container. I haven't actually run the container yet.
Well, it ran
It just says our phone right there.
Yeah, so it was doing that as part of the Docker build of the container. I didn't alter the state of the Docker container. Yeah.
Is the container running right now?
No, that's what I'm saying. Is I built the container, but I don't have an instance of it running yet.
Okay.
So to run it, you do I have to cheat docker run it --rm removes the container as soon as it's done running. What did we call it? Test Perl, I think. Oh, yeah, I didn't give it anything. So now I can just say Perl. Oh, let's just do v. So that was the 510 inside of the CentOS right there. So I could have it run any Perl command right now, and it'd be running inside the CentOS 510 Perl.
I see. So you have so now you can just use that container all day to, like you could be potentially taking Perl commands off the web and running them in that container.
Exactly. Yeah, they'd be safe to run. You could do your pipe to shell kind of thing, you know.
Your level of paranoia.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love Docker. The whole idea of it's not really performance from what I've read compared to other lower level, Docker or Linux containers. It's not quite at the same level yet, but it's sure fun to use. I really like it. So, any other questions about stuff I'm not prepared to talk about? All right, thanks.